Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven. I'm a pharmacist and I own 54 units of real estate. So I talked to a few lenders about ADUs, and the financing options are very limited with ADUs, unfortunately, still. That's the reason why I decided not to get an ADU back when I first bought my property with a large lot of 7,000 square foot back in 2020, was that there's not many financing options. And on top of that, if there's no sales comps in the area of a single family home with an ADU, detached ADU, a junior ADU, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you spend, let's just call it $400,000 to build a detached as well as a junior ADU, it doesn't mean that your value will increase by $400,000. It just depends if there's sales comps. So if you're kind of the pioneer in your neighborhood, like if you're the first one to build kind of a triplex on a single family home in Anaheim and you sell it, then maybe you set some precedents for sales comps, but it's not always guaranteed. So a lot of people, the lender was telling me, is that the most common way people finance it is either through a HELOC on their primary residence, because HELOCs on your investment properties are harder to get and the interest rate's going to be worse, especially in this interest rate environment. Or they pay cash and just have the money ready to go. So for me, I'm most likely going to pay this maybe half cash, and the rest is going to be a line of credit against my stock portfolio. Because my primary, I put 5% down, there's no equity, I can't do a HELOC on it. And then for my investment properties, I just was quoted 70% combined loan to value. So at most I can maybe pull out, let's just call it, $150K. But they charge so many fees, like the percent in fees. So most of these lenders, who they're using for investment HELOCs is Figure, which is just an online application. It's kind of funny, but it's just an online application. But if you use a broker, they're going to upcharge you. So just so you know, I'm fully transparent. They use figure.com, and basically you just input your numbers. So how much is it worth? Do you think? What's the loan? Is it a rental property? What's your credit score roughly? How much income do you have between your W-2, 1099, your real estate? And it'll just give you an automated quote pretty fast, or rejection pretty fast. So it goes both ways. And basically from there, once you, assuming you get approved, it's going to give you like a line. Like, okay, if you want to pay 4% in fees, this is your interest rate, this is your monthly cost. If you want to pay 2% in fees, this is your interest rate, this is your cost. So obviously the more points you pay, the lower the interest rate. So for me, I don't want to pay any points. So your interest rate's going to be closer to 10% and above. So, you pay a bunch of fees, and with the HELOCs, you have like a, let's just call it a 3 to 5 year draw period where you can use the money. And then after that, you have to repay it over, 20 years. So to me, I was just like, wow, these fees, it's a little too high. It's not worth it. And that's why I'm just ending up using a line of credit against my stocks. I prefer not to, but to open a line of credit against my Charles Schwab account, about 70% of the value. There's no fees, and there's no draw period. The interest rate's slightly lower because I have assets with Charles Schwab, so I get I think a 0.25% discount, and it's a lot simpler. You just wire money out. They might charge you a little fee of maybe $25 to wire the money out, and then you basically can just pay back whenever you want. And so that's the route we're probably going. But the lender was just forewarning me that, hey, if you're going to build an ADU, a detached and a junior ADU, just know that you better hold that long term, because you're not guaranteed. If you're spending $400,000, he was saying that, you only might get 40% or 50% of increase in value if there's not many sales comps in the area. So just because I spend $400,000 doesn't mean the value of the home's going to increase by $400,000. It may only go up by $200,000. which is kind of counterintuitive because, obviously with just one home, I'm getting, let's say, $4,000 a month. But if I add a 3-bedroom, that can get me another close to $4,000 a month. And if you add another 1-bedroom, that's $2,500 a month. So you're almost like $10,000 a month in rental income. So, to me, if you're going that route and building the ADUs, either A, you're going to hold, and then your exit strategy is going to be either a cash buyer, or you have to use an investor who's doing a non-QM loan. So this is like a income-based loan. So this is what a lot of the Airbnb people did, was that, obviously they valued the property not based on the sales comps of that single-family home, but they valued the property based on like the AirDNA data for short-term rental income. So they looked at NOI divided by cap rate. And if, let's just say, your Airbnb was producing a lot of income, then, if normally that house would sell for, let's call it $1 million, but because of the income, and it's valued based on the income, it might be worth $1.5 to $1.7 million. And then you can do like a huge cash out refinance, obviously leverage a bit more, and then pull out all your money and recycle your capital if you want to leverage. But as I said before, and as a reminder to myself, leverage is a double-edged sword. So you want to use it to scale, but know when to scale back as well. So for me, I just thought, okay, well, that because whenever you buy something or do something, you want to think of your exit strategy. And that's why I failed in my mobile home park. Like, I didn't realize that, wow, like if I were to buy a mobile home park and sell it, my pool of buyers is way more limited compared to single family home. Same with apartment complex. Like, it took me a year to sell my mobile home. I'm considering selling my 20 unit. Let's see how long that takes. But it's probably gonna take a long time versus single family home. They sell pretty fast. Like within 3 to 6 months, worst case, it's gone. If you're in a good market, 3 months or less. And so that's what, it was a nice reminder for me. So I just said, okay, well, if you're putting $400,000 in this and you're gonna sell it in the next few years, you're gonna lose money, right? Unless you get a cash buyer, or unless you connect them with a non-QM lender, and they value the asset based on the income. So, maybe, let's just say it's worth $1 million as is, and then if I spend $400,000 to add a detached ADU and a junior ADU, maybe now it's only worth $1.2 million, so I only got half the value I put down for the ADU, if you do based on sales comps. But if you look at the income, I'm getting, let's say, $10K a month, and maybe they'll value this closer to like $2 million. So maybe it's like, $1.8, $1.9 million just based on the income alone. So you might have to get a little creative if you're going down that route, or you have to sell the property credit financing yourself. So it's just something to keep in mind. So I was like talking to my wife about it. I just said, hey, like, just so we know, if we're going into this triplex thing and building a detached ADU and junior ADU, we're gonna have to hold this long term. Like, we cannot sell this. And she was just like, yeah, I think I like to keep the property. And that was my thoughts as well, because it's in Orange County. So if we want to live in Orange County one day, that's the house we'd live in. I locked in a 2.7% interest rate, which is amazing, in the main house. And I wouldn't mind living in the detached ADU, right? Rent out the front house and then the attached ADU, and live in the backyard ADU. I wouldn't mind doing that. Or I can live in the main house and rent out the detached ADU and the attached ADU. So, knowing that, if we're all okay with that, then great. But, like I said, right now I have the intent of keeping it, but things happen, right? Like, I never thought I would sell my mobile home park. Didn't do so great. Sold it. Never thought I'd sell my 20 unit. Well, I want to 1031 exchange it now. So, not actively trying to sell it, but, for the right price, why not? Like, why not? I would consider it for the right price. They can do 1031 exchange and buy some properties free and clear and take some chips off the table, right? And pay a little tax to do that. And then I want, a less headache property, if I'm being honest. So once I'm there, and sorry, man, people don't let you in when you signal. Once I'm there, basically what I'm going to do is basically renovate this with a long-term mindset now. So that's why you have to be clear on your exit strategy. And like I said, so this one we're committed unless there's suddenly a bunch of sales comps, right? And I feel like in the city that I'm buying in, I don't think there's many sales comps versus if you're buying like Westminster, Garden Grove, Fullerton, Anaheim. There's so many sales comps there. But like I said, they have to sell. But most people, at least the builders that I talk to, a lot of them are just buying it and using it as like rental income. Because like I said, it's a good cash and cash return. Like if you were to buy these ADUs cash, let's just call it easy math, $250K all in for like something that rents for $3,000 a month. You get $36K in gross rental income. Your expenses aren't that much, so your net's almost gonna be $36K. And you divide that by 250K, and your cash and cash return is like, I think 16-17%, which is really good, right? That's better than the S&P 500. That's better than your 10% cash on cash return you get using leverage. So it's not a bad deal, right? In that sense, like if I can lock in a 16% cash on cash return, I'll take that all day. And it only gets better as rents go up. And in Orange County, rents have been trending up. And if you have a nicer product, like if you make your ADU a little bit nicer and you make it like taller ceilings, you give it some skylight to make it bright, you give her some nice finishes, and those don't cost that much more, right? Most of the cost is labor. But if you spend that extra effort to make it a little bit nicer than average, and I saw that with making like a 14-foot ceiling. So like it had the pitched ceiling for 14 feet. It felt so spacious in there, and it was a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, 750 square foot with pitched ceilings. It felt so spacious, and then you have solar panels on there. You have a little porch. You have a little side yard, and if you add a little fence there, it feels very private. Like you can charge higher than premium rents because you're just competing against apartments. So that's what I'm thinking of now. Like maybe I can, I'm getting a pretty good price on my ADU builder. Like maybe I can splurge a little bit on finishes, but you don't want to go too crazy because things add up, right? $2,000 items add up over, if it costs $2,000 here, $2,000 there, times that by 20, that's $40,000 extra. So, but you can splurge on little things to make it like light fixtures, backsplash, make the bathroom a little bit nicer, give them an island. These little things you can do to really make it stand out. Recessed lighting, nice light fixtures, not too bad. So it's giving me that mindset and clarity. So like you said, we're going into this with the idea to hold it long term, and if we were to live in it one day, would we be okay having basically tenants in the backyard? So if we decide to occupy the main house, we'd have we could live in the main house, and if we want to, we can take over the attached ADU as well, and then just rent out the backyard house, or we can rent out or just live in the backyard house and then rent out the main house and the attached ADU separately. So it gives us options depending on how much space we want. But we just said, are we open to it? And if the answer is yes, then that's okay, right? So yeah, that's kind of the key thing is the financing for ADUs are not strong. But maybe California's not there yet, because in Seattle, I know that you could basically section off the land and get a separate APN number, which is I think a separate like tax ID number for that property. And then from there, you can essentially use the land as collateral for the down payment, and you can build a home for, let's just call it $350K all in, and then you can just sell it separately. So if in that example a single family home sells for $700,000, you buy the front house, you section off the back land, and then let's say it costs you $350K to build that back property, but it's worth $700,000. You just doubled your return on investment, and you made $350,000 of forced appreciation, and you rent that out to cash flow. So if you guys watch Thatch Nguyen, that's what he essentially does in Seattle. And maybe one day this might happen in California. So once that happens, I could basically section off my backyard ADU, and now the value be worth $1 per square foot. So that's where it gets kind of lucrative, right? That's why, like, part of me, it's like the minimum for a 3-bedroom is 900 square feet. But if I'm thinking long term, and if I think those rules will transfer from Seattle over to California, it'd be smart of me if I were to build something bigger. So, like, I think the biggest I can build is 1,100 square foot. But like you said, obviously 900 versus 1,100 square foot, I don't think the rents are gonna go up that much more, if I'm being honest. But I'm gonna end up spending $300 per square foot more. So if you do $300 per square foot times 200 square feet to maximize it, that's another $60,000, right? But then you're not necessarily guaranteed that much more rent for $60,000 invested. So it's something that you have to, like, keep in mind, right? Something that you have to keep in mind and be cognizant of. So, you know, that's why for me, like, the sweet spot for a rental, if I'm being honest, is 900 square foot. Is 900 square foot, but park. Is 900 square foot, but if I'm thinking longer term, and I think that I can section off my ADU to a separate lot or APN number, then you want to have a bigger property, obviously, because it'll be worth more. And like I said, it only cost me $300 per square foot to build, but it might be worth $800 per square foot. So you're getting, like, double return on your money. So it's that fine balance, right? But, you know, part of me, it's like, well, just invest for today, and you know, don't overthink things as you're doing it. So, you know, I'll see how much it costs to build it, and then, you know, make our decision from there. But like I said, we would look at this long term, and then we would look to just make this as rental income. So basically, this is my wife's retirement. Like, the way we're viewing is, if we spend, let's just call it, I don't know, $350,000, because we got quoted $260K for a 2-bedroom, I think 750 square foot ADU in the back, and then the garage converted to a 450 square foot 1-bedroom, because I saw that property, and I think they were all in for $260. So if you do $260K divided by, I think that was roughly 1,100 square foot, I ended up being about $216K per square foot, which is a little bit cheaper. I was quoted $250 or $255 per square foot. But if I were to get that term, then essentially I could extrapolate out that my units are going to be about $1,350. So $1,350 square foot times $217 per square foot, it'd be roughly around $300,000. But that's not including, like, the fees and some utility hookups and solar panels. So I'm thinking it might be like $325, $330 all in, hopefully. But that's a really good deal. So if I can get that, and my rents are going to be $6,200 between the back unit and the front unit. So the 3-bedroom can get around $3,700, and then the 1-bedroom can get $2,500. So it's $6,200. I mean, if you times that, that's about 72K per year in gross income. Not much expense. And then if you're all in for $350, I mean, geez, that's like almost 18-20% cash on cash return once again. So like I said, this is more of like a cash flow play, not as much as appreciation play. It may end up being appreciation play because a lot of people are building ADUs, but it's more of a cash flow play. So if I truly am cash flowing, you know, $6,000 a month from that one property, like, that's enough for my wife just to be, like, part-time, or, like, you know, just work, like, fewer days. And then, like, we still live the same quality of life, and maybe she can not work at all if, you know, once if the rents go up over time. So, you know, keep you guys posted. Hopefully to get a quote today, but just kind of want to share with you, like, the challenges of financing the ADUs. Usually it's cash, usually it's a line of credit, a HELOC against your primary, or if you have stocks, you can do a line of credit against that, which is what I'm doing. So anyways, hopefully you found value. Like I said, I'm documenting my ADU journey. If I end up using these ADU guys, I'll try to bring them on and try to partner with them to help advertise them and keep you guys posted. But let me know what questions you have. If you want to join my school community on a free trial, if you want coaching, you want mentorship, you want to send me an email, you want a daily landlord insurance quote, click on my link tree, has all the links below. Otherwise, hope to see you in the next one. Thank you so much.